Bob. This is a story about Bob. Bob has mastered the politics of corporate America. Now in his late 50s, he's seen it all. Downsizing, outsourcing, right-sizing. But he has continued to rise through the ranks because he knows how to play the game. You guys know how to play the game? No. Telling your boss what they want to hear. Or maybe you have employees in leadership roles that are constantly or maybe telling you what you want to hear. So he's figured out how to play the game. He gets in before everyone else. He stays later than everyone else. And he also scores that sweet parking spot by the front door, the one where everyone who comes in later can note with a mixture of envy and resentment that Bob outdid them again. During the day, Bob goes to every meeting. He eats lunch at his desk. He turns the lights out at night. His bosses describe him as a workhorse or a rock. You can't deny that he's working, right? He's there all the time. Right? Or not so much. He puts in so much time, he must be doing something. Maybe he's shopping on eBay, playing solitaire at his desk, or whatever the case may be. Forget the fact that Bob doesn't really do anything. No matter that Bob hasn't contributed meaningfully to the bottom line in years. At some point in time in our lives, most of us, whether we like it or would admit it or not, are guilty of presenteeism, which by definition is any time you're physically present and putting in time, but you're not really doing your job. So you're there, you're physically present, but mentally you've checked out. Right? You could continue or further define presenteeism by once again, playing computer games at your desk. Maybe it's shopping on eBay. Maybe it's like I do, willingly to admit it, watching the Masters live feed, or other major golf tournament live feeds on ESPN.com, when I should be working. Or maybe it's keeping track of my fantasy football scores, after the games on Sunday, on Monday, during all of our super beneficial, profitable meetings. Right, John?
Absolutely.
That's right. No, we have an ongoing joke about that.
We've got a new book we're reading called Meetings Suck.
Right.
It's a true book.
Aptly titled. Appropriately titled. So once again, I say all of these things to further illustrate the fact that there's this perception in the American workforce, unfortunately, there's a direct correlation, and there's actually this equation that I wrote down, and it's so appropriate in telling this myth, is that time plus physical presence equal results. Right? Is that not a fair assumption? Feedback, thoughts, question?
Depends.
It depends. And maybe not in all workforces. And here's some crazy statistics that I found when I was working through some of, just preparing for today's session. By the way, this book doesn't give a bunch of statistics. It actually points you to Google, and I did it just for fun. The average American worker, and I don't know the validity or the, how strong these results really are, but I thought they were very telling. It was on the first page of Google. The average American worker in a traditional 8-hour workday is productive 3 hours of the 8 that they're sitting there. Three hours out of the 8? Unbelievable to me.
Not much.
Yeah. Right. And it begins to make sense to me, or it makes sense to me as I begin to think about, okay, well, if you take out the smoke breaks, or you take out all the times that you mess around on the computer, or you take out the time that you're chit-chatting with your coworkers, or you take out the time that you're eating lunch, or whatever it is that you do, or however it is that you choose to waste time, that's probably pretty accurate. And like you mentioned, maybe a little too generous in some cases, right? So 3 hours out of 8, the statistic or this survey showed or indicated. So back to this whole idea or concept of perception is reality, because that's essentially what this is saying, right? They're saying that if you're there, if you're sitting there, if you're coming in early, staying late, that you're working. So the whole idea of perception being reality, is it really reality? And then how do we go as employers or leaders in our organizations away from this model of not judging employees' performance from a time perspective, but actually judging what it is that they're supposed to be doing day in and day out? Or how do you transition from this traditional model into a results-oriented work environment? And obviously, there's some scenarios that present obvious difficulties in maybe transitioning from this in terms of giving people flexible schedules or flex time, or allowing them to work from home, or not forcing them or mandating that they ever attend another meeting in their life, only if they deem it to be appropriate or meaningful. All of these other things that are oftentimes found in environments that are results-oriented, which I think is awesome if you're a manufacturer, or if you have folks that are on some sort of an assembly line. Obviously you can't allow them to come in when they want, because if they're not there to do their job, the whole line shuts down. But you guys get the thought, right? There's this other issue, or this myth of the 40-hour work week, and where all that stuff came from. Who said that working full-time or part-time was working 25 hours a week or 40 hours a week, right? So is it about how much time you put in? And is that the model by which it deems you to be productive or successful? Or is it about accomplishing the task or the goals or the objectives that your employer has identified for you using different models, whether it be job descriptions or whatever the case may be, that you're obviously should be working towards on a daily basis? There was actually a quote from was it Michael Bloomberg, governor of New York, not governor, mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg. He was actually given a commencement, he was the commencement speaker at a graduation for a college there in the New York City area on Staten Island. And he made this comment that I completely disagree with. He said, and I quote, "If you're the first one in the morning, and the last one to leave at night, and you take fewer vacation days and never take a sick day, you will do better and be more successful than the people that don't do those things." And obviously, everything that we've talked about to this point in our time this afternoon, obviously is contrary to that, or at least that's where I'm trying to work us towards. So, when we talk about, as professionals, why should we do performance evaluation? Does anyone here like doing performance evaluation? I've never had one HR professional ever look me in the eye and say, "I absolutely love to do performance evaluations. I love to prepare for them. I love to put them together. I love the task of trying to train my managers and supervisors who have no clue about anything human resource related, and try to teach them and train them how to evaluate the employees' performance that report directly to them." Nobody likes it. Everybody's frustrated with them, and reluctantly, some of us do it. Some of us don't do it as often as we probably should, and then others of us, because it's difficult, just doesn't do it at all. And there's no federal law or regulation that says you have to do it, but it's a really good idea. Let me pose a couple of thoughts or ideas. Let's assume that we have an employee that you choose to fire or not promote for performance reasons. Okay? And let's say that they, after their termination, they accuse you of wrongful termination because of their national origin, because they were from a different country. Okay? Obviously, that's prohibited if that was the case, or if that was factual. That's obviously protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. What if you had an employee that was over the age of 40 that you terminated, or that you didn't promote, and for performance reasons, and he accused you of terminating him, or not promoting him because he was over the age of 40? Well, we know that that's protected under the ADEA, the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, right? Okay. What if we had a pregnant employee that wasn't promoted? She took some time off to have a baby. Okay. She claimed wrongful termination, or that she didn't get a promotion because she was pregnant, had a baby, and had to take some time off. Obviously, that's protected under the the Pregnancy Discrimination Act, right? Okay? Prohibited under those acts. We could give example after example after example after example. Disability, the ADAAA, FMLA, all federally protected acts, right? You guys with me? Okay, so then the motivation then of why we do performance evaluation from a compliance perspective is so that we have something to stand on if someone ever accuses us that we've done something wrong, right? And that's a lot of the reason why we do it. At least one of the reasons why we do it. So if we're accused of something, we have to, as employers or leaders in our organization, especially those that are of you that in the room that are human resource professionals, we have to be able to prove or substantiate that we didn't do something, and how are we going to do that? How are we going to show the documentation to back that up? Obviously, one of the ways to do that is a performance evaluation. We could have another example. What if someone, I'll use Jason as an example and Gail, since they're both sitting right here in the front. Let's just say that both Jason and Gail were excellent employees of mine. They were high performers, high achievers, rock star employees, superstars, whatever you want to call them. Both Gail and Jason apply for a promotion, the same promotion. They're the only two employees that apply for the promotion, and essentially, they're both equally qualified for the job. So I begin to look for reasons as their employer or their supervisor, and I literally can't find anything to differentiate them. They're literally both equally qualified for the job. But I realize that Gail has received the perfect attendance award for the last 5 years in a row for not missing a day of work. Outside of her normal vacation time, not calling in sick or anything of that nature. And then I realized that Jason's wife had a baby not too long ago, and Jason took some time off to spend time with his wife and the newborn baby, and just to help in that transition, which is normal and natural for fathers to do. I have a 2-month-old and did the same thing. So I give Gail the promotion based on that assumption. So then I pose the question to the group that how is a supervisor, someone who's not an HR professional, that doesn't understand compliance, doesn't understand FMLA, doesn't understand ADA and these other issues, how is a manager or a supervisor supposed to know that holding the fact that he took time off to care for his newborn child, which is protected under the FMLA, how am I supposed to know that I can't hold that against him in trying to consider or evaluating these two employees for this promotion?
Training.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys that are HR professionals train managers on a regular basis on these types of issues? Awesome. So once again, these managers and supervisors oftentimes are really, really good at what they do. They could be an excellent and a rock star drill press operator, just for an example. They're the best drill press operator that exists. And because they're really good at what they do, at being a drill press operator, they get promoted to be the manager of all the drill press operators in this particular facility. That doesn't naturally make them or equip them with all of the skills and the information that they're going to need in order to carry out their responsibilities solely just by being a manager. They have to be trained, they have to be educated, they have to be equipped with the tools and the resources they need in order to pull this off. So once again, how are your supervisors supposed to know? So then we get to the part of the discussion this afternoon. How do we do this? How do we actually put these things together? So now we know the whys. We know what we're working towards. We're not trying to evaluate employees' performance from a time perspective. We're really trying to evaluate the specific task that we've identified. But how do we do that? Any thoughts, comments?